It just started. So.
Am I on?
You're live.
Hi there. So here we are again. I hope that some of you who were there the last time are here now today. And I want to, instead of just going into question and answer, I want to pick a topic. And I find that what sits in front of your sofa and what the distance and what the height is really something that a lot of people have problems with. Let's say that you have more than one seating. You don't want coffee tables in front of everything. So you have to start to think of how do you vary what's in front of the seating to give your room more depth and more sort of broader point of view. Some of the things that I use, first of all, 18 inches away, 1.5 feet from the front of the sofa to whatever you have sitting there is the perfect distance. In height, I usually do 18 to 19 inches because most seating height is at 18, so you want it at the same level. If you want to vary it, the next size that I use is tea table height, and that is 27 inches. So that gives you a height that you don't have to bend down to put your drink on the table. You are sort of at the same level, your arm, so you can reach out and sit a drink. Different things that I use is I use ottomans, and the average size of an ottoman that I use is usually 24, which is 2 foot deep, by 3.5 to 4 feet. And when I do an ottoman, I usually do semi-attached, so that means that the cushion is not slipping around. I have two ways of doing it, a smooth top or a tufted top. If you do a tufted top, I think it gives more dimension to the ottoman, but then you have the little tucks in that things get into. What I usually do on top of that is I sit a tray. And the trays that I do are usually between from 18 to 24 and from 30 to 36 in length. And I think that that's the perfect thing because you have a nice sized surface to put flowers or drinks, and then you have enough room to be able to put your feet up if you're watching television. The other thing that I do is I do small cubes, usually 18 inches square by 18 inches high. And again, so now you have one coffee table or one surface in front of the sofa. That's an ottoman with a tray. Under another, in front of another seating, you have two cubes, 18 inches. And if you have a third piece, then you do tea table height, which is 27. So now when you're looking at the room, there are different looks to in front of each of the sofas. And I think that that makes the room feel more substantial instead of just very regimented. So those are my tips on coffee table. So if we want to open this up for questions, I am ready. First question is,
how do you go about selecting accessories for a room?
Okay, the question is, how do I go about selecting accessories? Well, I try from the backgrounds to the floors to the furniture to the accessories to have yin and yang. If you have a very sort of elaborate console, gilded, I like to sit things there that are a little cruder. A wonderful collection of African pieces on stands. Looks great on top of a very 18th century gilded console. I try to vary it. I try to, if there's a plate sitting on a coffee table that is a nice porcelain, then the things that are in front of it or besides it are a little more cracked. So there's levels to the room. The same way as I was talking about the ornaments, you have the same levels in the types of accessories. I mean, I travel the world. That's what I love doing. So I'm buying things for VW Home from Africa, Southeast Asia, from Europe, from the Middle East, because that gives me, when I am doing my spaces, a variation in elements. So when I'm looking at the room, it has a depth. It says, whoever lives here, it has different interests. And I think that's important. So that's how I select it. I travel, I mix them, and I try to always do three elements, and thinking of how you do Japanese floral arrangements, I do a high, a medium, and a low. So this again, there's rhythm in the heights, there's rhythm in the mixture, and there's rhythm within the room of the elements that are being mixed together in the way of furnishings. I hope that answers it. It's a long answer, but anyway. And the next question is?
Laura asked, so many people don't understand the importance of layering lighting. Can you talk about that?
The question was about layering lighting. All I have to say is think of a stage, if you go to the theater, how that lighting creates a total emotion. And if you ever pay attention, it's not all coming from the top, it's not all coming from the sides, and it's not all coming from the bottom. It's a mixture of it. So if you have a table lamp, that starts to give you intimate lighting. If you have a uplight, that accentuates a tree or a pedestal. And if it's coming down from the ceiling, then you have a general illumination, or you have wall washers that hit a wall that has art. From the ceiling, whether it's track, which is advantageous because you can move it around to suit whatever you're setting up. But I think it's important because it gives you a high, a medium, and a low of lighting in the space. And there's nothing wrong with a dark corner. I mean, the whole room does not have to be all lit up. It can have highs and lows in the way of quantity of light. I think that's what gives depth to a space. Good. Next one.
How do you present your design concept to your clients?
Okay, so you have to start with the understanding, if you're a designer, that the chances that the person you're presenting to is blind. Not literally, but blind as it pertains to seeing aesthetic. So when I'm presenting, I use different elements. One is renderings. I don't do colored renderings, we do black and white renderings. And the reason I do that is I don't want it to look like a photograph of the room. I want it to look like an essence of what that room is going to be. So I present plans, so they get an idea of how the furniture lays out. I present elevations, so they can see what the walls are going to look like that you're looking at. And then I start from the walls to the floor, ceiling, upholstery. I go step by step and start to build the room up. I don't jump around, because as is, then that becomes even more confusing. And let's say I'm into it by a third, I stop and I start from the beginning again. And I keep repeating it for them to keep the chain of creativity going. With it, there's samples of fabrics, of the materials of metal, of stone, of leather. So as I say, in the sofa, I show them a picture of the sofa, it's in this fabric, and I show them the fabric. And there are going to be pillows on there of these two fabrics. So I'm always trying to build the image of the room. I don't give choices, because I think that what I'm getting paid for is to create an environment for them. If there's things that they don't like, I change them. But the idea of giving 3-4 choices on each thing, you're disregarding the fact that you're creating an environment. you're not buying furniture. And I think it is very important, for me anyway, to show one complete concept. And then, as I said, if the client doesn't like the feel of the fabric or the particular piece of furniture that I'm showing, I ask them, why do you not like that? What is it about it that doesn't please you? So then when I go to replace that piece, I don't follow the same direction that I did the last time. So it is start with the walls, go into the room, walls, floors, ceiling, upholstery, tables, and then whatever lighting fixtures I show at the end, with a rendering and with all the materials. When the presentation is finished, I give them a book that has a copy of the rendering, a nice composition of all the materials, and of course at the end, estimate sheets telling them and describing everything that we have presented to them. And it's not to say that they walk out of here with a clear vision, because 90% of the time when we install the room, which we do at once, they say, oh my God, I never thought it was going to look like this. But at least they have the confidence that you have thought of this in a clear way and that it is very much tailored to them. Because at the beginning of the process, I always go through questionnaires with them to find out their likes, their dislikes, the colors that they like, the colors they don't like, how many people are they going to entertain, how much surface do they want in the room. So I've taken all that, I've taken my aesthetic and my interpretation of who the client is, and I presented the one painting that I've done of how I see them in their space. Next one.
Any tips on designing a small room / studio apartment?
When you have a studio apartment, you have to be very strong about continuity. You have to be very strong about coloration. You don't want to use 40 prints. You don't want to use a color in each wall. You want it to be as integral as possible. Because the more uniform coloration is and patterns are, the stronger and the bigger that room is going to become. Don't be afraid about using scale, because sometimes to every room in a studio, everything is small. You get the sense that it's a small room. Play a little bit with the scales of the space. Be sure you do a furniture plan, because when you have a small room without a furniture plan, and that you do by measuring the walls, creating a drawing of the room, do it 1/2 inch equals a foot. So any ruler has 1/2 inch, which is the line between the inch, and just do a rough drawing to scale. And like this, you can put the sofa, you can put the tables, and you can then be sure that it's all going to fit together. Thanks.
You are a collector. How do you deal with your collections and your clients' collections?
Listen, when a client comes to you with a wonderful collection of art, of objects, that makes the job even so much better, because you're integrating, you're blending together their ideas and their likes with the work that you're doing. On the other hand, if I don't think that something is going to work, I'm going to tell the client, because they're spending a lot of money to create an environment, and why spend all that money to make something that doesn't work in the space? It's not adding, it's really taking away, because you're losing the possibility of having something that would work better within that space. So that's how I deal with it. And don't be afraid to say, I don't like it, I don't think it works, because that's part of what you're getting paid for. You're getting paid for your point of view, so you have to be upfront and say so.
What do you suggest to refresh kitchen cabinets without replacing them?
Painting them. I'm going through right now with a client a kitchen that has yellowed and the kitchen looks fine, but the element, the wood and the finish of the wood has really turned yellow. And we're going back and forward on this because I say to her, paint it. Once you paint those cabinets in a bright color, that whole kitchen is going to look completely different. But it's the idea, well, if it scratches, well, if after 2 years of painting those doors, there's a chip, it's regular paint. You just touch it up. But it prevents you having to spend a lot of money in redoing the kitchen and living with something that really doesn't look right. Next.
In your travels, where have you found the most inspiration?
Where have I found the most inspiration? I think the whole world is inspiring. Whether I'm in my garden or whether I'm in Papua New Guinea or Bhutan, if you're looking, it's all around you. Even today, it rained. You look at the puddles in the street in New York and how it reflects the buildings, how the colorations. I mean, you just have to be looking. And you don't have to travel to the end of the world to be inspired. Go to museums, look at paintings, look at the colorations the different artists use, and use that as your inspiration in creating your space. I rather travel, I'm going to Chad, which is in northern Africa, going to Egypt, and going to Namibia, which is the colors in the desert are really amazing. So you walk back, you come back, not that I'm going to come back and do the coloration, but you file it in your mental filing cabinet, and subliminally you start to think of those colors in a different way. Yes.
Do you recommend a duvet or a comforter?
Well, what's the thing that a bedspread? No, I don't like bedspreads. What do you do with them? You don't lie on them. You have to fold it. I love duvets. What I always do is I do a comforter, which usually falls at the foot of the bed. And I use a color that is maybe happening in the room. I love white sheets. And I usually like just some sort of blanket. It could be quilted, but just to tie the whole bed together. So either one. I mean, the comforters, I do comforter covers that can be taken off and washed, usually out of cotton. You wash them and you press them and you put them back on. That's how I usually like, but white sheets. It could have embroidery and a tonality that's happening in the space, but in general, it is white sheets.
Following with the comforters, do you usually use custom comforters?
Oh, well, the comforters, they come king, queen, single, that sort of thing. But the people, you can buy it. You can buy them. I mean, if you go to the Tube, they do beautiful comforters that match the sheets. It depends. To me, I like to do custom because I'm picking the colors that are happening in the space. So that's really up to you and how you want your bed to look and what the rest of your bedroom looks like.
Back to your travels.
I keep looking this way because the questions are coming this way.
Back to your travels and what you were talking about earlier. Was that what you were talking about in your first book, Learning to See?
Well, yes, it is, because my background is not one that came from a book. My background training came from seeing things. And I find that seeing things make it, it awakens me. And so when I did the first book, I did something that I felt could add to people to think, oh, I really should be looking around. Because most people you ask, did you see what you just passed? And they'll say no. But if you're looking around, especially living in New York, you have to always have your eyes open. But you know, you're looking around, you're seeing things that maybe surprise you. So you should do that.
How do you make...
Besides that, you should look at the new book that I just came out, because in that book I talk about, again, lessons that I've learned, and I pass it on to the clients, and you can see the inspirations in the different spaces of where they came from. Sorry. Yeah.
How do you make a small bedroom look bigger?
Well, you're going to have a bed that you have to sleep in. Again, if the walls and the floors are in the same tonality, that's going to increase the room. Mirrors always work. Many times in bedrooms, I'll put it, if you walk in straight ahead, I usually have a mirror. I like to work in a large scale. The smallest I work is 4 by 8, so it's a perfect rectangle. So if you have that reflecting the window, reflecting the larger part of the bedroom, that's a great way of increasing. Use the least amount of furniture as possible. You can, if it's a light color, you can paint the ceiling and the walls that same color. Try not to stripe moldings and baseboards in a different tone, because that accentuates the size of the space. So try from at least the top of the wall, molding and baseboards, all to be painted the same color.
Any creative ideas on how to create a non-traditional kitchen that is still functional?
I can only go by my kitchen in Montauk, because I think it's unconventional. It suits my lifestyle. Open shelves, so if you have house guests, let them go and grab what they want. If the kids want a plate, they don't have to open the cabinet, they can grab a plate and take it down. My refrigerator has a glass door, so if you're hungry, you can see what's there, open the door and get it. Again, shelving the low counters, vinegars and oils and all that are in baskets, ready to able to be seen. And I've given myself a great deal of counters. So like this, if you're cooking, you're mixing things, it's all there and in the surface. Good lighting, you could have a fixture over here if you have an island. That's a nice thing. And I just think of unconventional kitchens, large islands. I can do them up to 16 feet long by 5, so you can dine, you can do work on, have a cooktop or a sink on it. Just simplify it, just the least, for me, the least amount of how you lay out the inside of the cabinets and be very precise. I like just adjustable shelves. I like pull-out shelves. That to me is the easiest.
How do you go about selecting fabrics?
How do I go about selecting fabrics? People joke here in the office. If I'm looking, to me, it's the mixture of rough, smooth, textured, shiny, matte, and the balance of all those is what I use in the room. Is it the fabric of life? Is it the fabric that my heart is going to be? I don't care. I want the texture, I want the color. And that to me is the most important thing. So many times we have in the office baskets with all the different colors. I usually just go, oh, that looks good, I pull it out. I don't go nuts over, is this or that fabric. If it's doing what I want it to do, which is the texture, the color, how it's going to wrap around the piece of furniture that I'm using it, is it going to be functional, then that's fine. And that's really how I do fabrics. It's about the balance. It's about no different than how I choose upholstery, how I choose elements. It's all about how one place against the other that really makes it, work for me.
Where do the baskets you were just referring to come from?
Plastic baskets, straw baskets, just whatever appeals to you and your budget. In my apartment, I use what used to be used as dynamite boxes, where they used to stack the dynamite. There's these with a handle, I use those for napkins. Just whatever, if you want an all-white kitchen, fine white rubber-covered baskets from, whatever the place that sells, I don't know what it's called, but, baskets and everything, or, just be free. If it doesn't work after 2 years, you get rid of it and you find something else. But it helps you to compartmentalize. As I said, oils and napkins and placemats. And like this, anybody can grab it because it's right exposed.
Do you recommend using under the bed for storage?
It depends, how much stuff you have to hide. In kids' rooms, I usually do the frame of the bed as drawers. So blankets and pillows and that sort of thing. I think it's how you store it, and are you sticking something under your bed that you're never going to look at again? So why not just get rid of it, instead of filling spaces up with useless things.
I believe this is going to be our last one.
See, time flies.
Can you talk about your discovery/gloss reflective ceilings?
So there's a restaurant in New York called Mr. Chow's, and Mr. Chow's opened, I would say, in the 70s. And I remember walking in, and all the walls are lacquered. And that was really the first time I saw it. And that's when I started using it. I think if you want to do lacquer on your walls or ceiling, there are a few things you have to be aware of. That is, chances are it's going to cost a lot. B, that the preparation is it exhausts you. Not you, but whoever's doing it. Because it's about compounding, about sanding. Those walls have to feel like a baby's tushy for it to be before it gets sprayed. And they take more than one spray, because sometimes when you spray it, the paint reacts differently. If the windows are open and it's very humid outside, it may react a different way. So there may be little bubbles, so they may be dull and shiny. So you have to resand it, put a thin coat of compound, and then do it again. And it is really, I don't like it when it's done with a roller. I like it when it's sprayed, because then it really forms like a plastic coat on it. Some people do clear wax over that when it's finished. I like it just sprayed and left the way it is. But what it does to a room is it doubles the height of the space. It doubles the light in the space. And it never fails to people walk in and go, wow, look at that. When you see your window doubled in the ceiling, it creates the total environment. In Montauk, I have lacquered walls, and the ocean is in front. And I see waves crashing on the wall because of the reflection. So it's a magnificent thing. You say, well, but compared to Venetian plaster, I prefer the lacquer, because to me the lacquer is smooth, it's modern, it makes the room feel like a box, like a molded box. And I prefer that myself. Well, I wanted to tell you all that this Sunday, Preston Bailey, who is a long friend of mine, he's not long, but we've been friends for a long time. We're doing a show house in Bridgehampton, and it is a benefit for breast cancer. And can I have it? Because I'm going to have to read it because I have no memory. It's Holiday House. It's Saturday between 12 and 2. And it's such a great cause. And I am looking forward to the conversation with Preston because we've been talking about what are we going to do. And we're so different. Our work is very different. And he wants it very strict and I want it very relaxed. And we know each other very well. So the things that I think may be said about each other, I think will be fun for those of you going. And it's breast cancer, and God knows that we need to put that out of the way. So please come, and if you are there, please come and talk to me and tell me that you came through this. It'll be so nice to do that. Thank you very much, and see you the next time.